You found us, and welcome to my Takeout, Emil Amok's Takeout. Emil Amok here. Emil Guillermo, Emil Amok to you. We call this My Secret Podcast. And, there are other podcasts that call themselves secret, but they're not secret. I know with thousands of people listening to that. This is a secret podcast. It really is. I'm glad you found us. You can find us on YouTube at Emil Amok1. You can find us on Twitter at Emil Amok. You can find us on Facebook, fb.com/Emil Guillermo or emilguillermo.media. You can find us at all those places. And if you're trying to figure out some back things, some back issues, probably the best is YouTube. But you can also find some at amok.com, my website. Anyway, welcome to the program. I wasn't going to watch the Trump trial. I mean, because you don't know who's going to come up, right? And they do that because the defense has been bad. I mean, Trump has been he's been found in contempt, at least a dozen times or maybe 10 times, right? I mean, the judge said yesterday that he could face jail time, and the prospect of the orange man in an orange jumpsuit is suddenly very, very real. I know it's God, could that fantasy come true? And people have already been speculating, well, maybe Rikers Island. I've been to Rikers Island as a reporter. It's no fun. I mean, when you're outnumbered, even when you're there with an escort, you're on your toes. I just, people have been speculating, well, where would Trump go? And then the realistic would say, oh, well, he would just be put aside in a holding tank for about 3 hours, or maybe after court, or maybe asked to stay after school. Essentially detention, which is what you'd expect for a toddler president, toddler ex-president. Oh, Donald has to stay after school today, because if he blows up, that's what's going to happen. And he almost blew up today, because today was the Stormy Daniels testimony. And, it's not nearly as salacious as people say. I mean, what was the most salacious thing? I mean, this is from reports, right? Stormy Daniels gets up and talks about the missionary position. I took my clothes off. I took my bra off. We were in the missionary position, although it does not suggest who was on top. That would have been a salacious detail. What Stormy Daniels, what was reported in the way that we are getting information from the trial, surrogates on the inside typing things out to reporters who are talking to other people on the outside. So the term missionary comes up. That's about as salacious as it gets. Is that TMI, too much information? Maybe. But I think it's important. Now, if you're pro-Trump, you'll say, Emil, what does this have to do with a business records falsification case? Everything. Because it speaks to the motivation of why Donald Trump wants all this gone. Why Donald Trump wants this hidden. I mean, you get Stormy Daniels under subpoena, under oath, because Donald Trump has denied this ever taking place. He's denied not just a sexual encounter, but really even knowing Stormy Daniels. And the prosecutor has said that, or not the prosecutor, excuse me, the defense attorney has said that. Trump certainly has said that. And so you need Stormy Daniels on the stand saying, yeah, I met Trump. I know Trump. I mean, they're not getting into the details like, well, can you speak to other identifying marks on the Trumpian body? See, we don't get into that kind of detail. from what has been reported. But we do get the sense that, yeah, she met Trump at that golf tournament in Lake Tahoe, the celebrity golf tournament, and that, yes, she went back to his room, and that, yes, she got naked with Trump, and she used the term missionary. So, look, that's about as salacious as it gets. We shouldn't get so prudish about that. Although some people would say, oh, that is NSFW, the acronym not safe for work. But no, it's safe. It's safe. It shows that Donald Trump has done worse, has said worse. It should be fine. But what does it say about Donald Trump? What it says about Donald Trump is now we know why he was motivated to hush all this up. I mean, it's a hush money case for a reason, because he does not want this information out to the voters in 2016. That's why this is kind of like a time machine moment, right? Stormy Daniels is talking about an instance that took place roughly in 2006, I believe, right? That's when the Lake Tahoe incident happened. She was out selling her story during the 2016 campaign, and Donald Trump, fresh off the Access Hollywood tape revelation, it was in October 2016. He didn't want anything else after that. And when Stormy Daniels was making noise about, hey, I got a story to tell about Trump, that's when they used catch and kill, paid her the money to shut her up. Hush money, $130,000. And now we know what Donald Trump didn't want you to know, because he feared that maybe I can get by with this Access Hollywood tape, just calling it locker room talk. But when a second shoe dropped and here was Stormy Daniels, he did not want that. And that is what you need to keep in mind, because that's what Donald Trump didn't want you to know in October 2016 as he's going for the election against Hillary Clinton. He's going for it. He didn't think he'd get that far, but he was close. And somehow his campaigners felt that if something else happened after Access Hollywood, he might be able to survive that. But if something else happened, he wouldn't be able to survive that. And look what happened. I mean, all you have to do is look at the 2016 race, and we could break it down in terms of how you voted. If you knew this and you were a Trump voter, if you knew all this stuff back in 2016, would it have made a difference? Would you not have voted for Donald Trump? And we don't know that. But if you're honest and you're a Trump voter, ask yourself. You're a Trump voter. You knew not just the Access Hollywood that grabbed them by the P word, that video. So you take that video, you take new allegations, a story from Stormy Daniels, porn star, talking about meeting Donald Trump in a hotel room in Lake Tahoe in, years before. But while Melania was at home with an infant son, and you have Stormy Daniels under oath saying, oh, he says, I don't even sleep in the same room with Melania. That's got to hurt if you're Melania. Certainly Donald Trump's kids, if they heard that Eric Trump tweeted out something that how he thinks it's a salacious farce. But no, we need to know this, because this gives Donald Trump the motivation to say, I'm trying to protect. Is he trying to protect Melania? No. He's going to try to say that. But he's trying to protect his candidacy for the presidency, because he's driving in the final weeks. He's already batted away the Access Hollywood accusations. the locker room talk, the locker room banter, the grabbing by the P word talk. And now Stormy Daniels is coming out saying she's going to tell her story. What's that worth to you? 130,000? Now, if you're Trump's business mind, you're thinking, well, if I'm president, I can get the Trump hotel down there in Washington. I get all the diplomats to go visit my hotel. I mean, because that's what happened, right? Because when Trump did not divest or did not distance himself from his real estate holdings, his businesses, he benefited by being in office. The Trump Hotel, that's one of the biggest accusations that have been charged against Trump in the past about how his presidency was so different from others. He benefited from being president in a way that is unprecedented. Hadn't happened. So you figure Trump in late October 2016 is saying to himself, this is worth 130,000, isn't it? I can pay Stormy Daniels 130,000, and I can give him. And this is the testimony from yesterday, the boring testimony from yesterday, when the Trump attorney identified checks, identified handwriting, not just the handwriting of Trump signing the checks, but the handwriting from Trump's CFO, Alan Weisselberg, saying, yeah, this is how we're doing it. We're going to pay Michael Cohen 130,000. We're going to gross it up. Meaning, we take care of the taxes for Michael Cohen, and we're going to pay out Michael Cohen. And this is how we're going to pay Stormy Daniels. And we're going to give Cohen a bonus. So the end amount that gets written is something like 400,000. But it all falsifies the 130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels. That was yesterday. And some observers have already called that the smoking gun. And Trump's guys are writing on notes on the actual bank note saying, yeah, this is going to happen. This is in payment for what we're doing. So the connection to the campaign, connection to the MO, right? David Pecker gets up, the National Enquirer guy at the trial's beginning, saying, yeah, we would catch and kill stories. We'd catch the source, we'd pay them off, we would buy their silence, and we'd kill the story. Essentially, that's what they were doing with Stormy Daniels. So you got that established already. You have the checks. You have Stormy Daniels today saying, yeah, it happened, using the word missionary. Okay, I see the picture. Although it's unclear. It could be missionary with, Donald Trump could be on the bottom. But the detail was not that detailed. This was her words, though. So this is where we are in the Trump trial. And more cross-examination. In fact, the cross-examination was kind of effective, I thought, because you exposed Stormy Daniels for they got her to say, yes, she hated Trump. Although, to me, I don't think that destroys her credibility. So what if she hates Trump? She hates Trump because what Trump did to her. But Trump did do to her what she claims. So I think that might take some effort, but there might be some jurors who look at that and say, well, that compromises the witness. She really hates Trump, so you got to take it with a grain of salt what she says, because it's not truthful, it's hateful. Well, hateful could be truthful. But that's sort of what was going on toward the end of the testimony, or toward the end of the court day in cross-examination. And I think it continues, not tomorrow. Tomorrow's a day off. It continues on Thursday. I think they're going to talk to Stormy Daniels about how to approach, not that she hasn't been coached already, but Stormy Daniels was up there for a couple hours and she seemed to be getting frazzled. So we'll see how she comes back on Thursday. But I think what this does shows us what we need. Trump had motivation. Trump had reason to keep this information away from you, the voter. That was the point. How do I, Donald Trump, keep this away from the voter? I've got to pay Stormy Daniels $130,000 and go through Michael Cohen and falsify that record so no one knows it, which is really weird because if you look at the documents that they unveiled on Monday, it says, hey, we're paying this out. Smoking gun time. So that's my take. And I think the relevant thing for everyone now, I write for Asian Americans from an Asian American perspective, and I think about the Asian American vote in 2016. The highlight of the Asian American vote in 2016 was Pakistanis and Bangladeshis were so pro-democratic, like 90%. The Asian American crew, overwhelmingly Democratic, about 69%. Now, so you say, okay, that's pretty strong. Democratic stronghold, Asian Americans. But where were the Trump strongholds within Asian America? Chinese, Vietnamese, and Filipino. About 34, 35%. Filipinos were about 28% for Trump in 2016. Now, we're not talking about a lot of people. What we're talking about is a third of the Asian electorate, right? What if they heard all this stuff about Trump? Because it was kept from them. I mean, that's where the falsification of documents linked to the election, that's a federal crime. Would that have changed your vote? Ask your friends. I know some Asian Americans who are so anti-Hillary that nothing would have changed their minds. So maybe that's a moot point. But there might have been some who would say, yeah, I think I would have changed my mind. And what if those people lived in Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Florida, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, essentially dead heats with, just a smidgen making the difference so that Donald Trump won those electoral college votes. And when you consider that, I mean, there was a dead heat, like 47-47. I mean, it was like ridiculous. Those three states. Or you take a state like Florida, where Donald Trump won by 2 percentage points. And he got all the electoral college votes there. Donald Trump won the electoral college like 304 to 240 something. You flip those states because it's close and give those states to Hillary Clinton. If you were a Trump voter and knew all this stuff that Stormy Daniels is testifying to, would you have changed your vote? I mean, that's kind of the issue. If you say, yeah, I mean, it's one thing to be, this locker room talk, Access Hollywood, but now he's having an affair and he's, this is infidelity against his wife who just had a baby. She's at home with the baby. He's at the golf course with Stormy Daniels. Do you want this guy to be president? Oh, come on, Emil. We had presidents who were philanderers. I mean, this guy wasn't president yet. This guy wanted to be president. He wanted our trust. He wanted our trust, and his wife can't even trust him. This is the kind of action that he takes. when he's on the golf course. He meets Stormy Daniels. He knew that if this got out, it would have endangered his election. So he did what he did. The allegation is he falsified records, paid Stormy Daniels $130,000. And it looks like it worked because people voted for Donald Trump in a very, very tight, close election. Now, like I said, if you knew this information then in 2016, that we know now, submitted under oath, Stormy Daniels under oath in a criminal trial of Donald Trump, would you have still voted for Trump? The race was so close. I don't know. The race was so close. Now, consider this. Emil, all this talk about the past, you're living in the past again. Okay, look, let's look at the future. There are African Americans and Latinos who are considering voting for Trump. Traditionally, these blocs are massively pro-Democrat. This year, different. I mean, the black vote was 80%, 80% for Obama, 90% for Obama. It was like 70 for Hillary Clinton, or maybe, no, I think it was like, I have to check. It was sort of like 90 something, 90% for Obama, 80 something percent for Clinton. Right now, as the pollsters are trying to figure out where the black and Latino vote is, the black vote is not overwhelmingly for Joe Biden and the Democrats. It's not. And in some areas, according to some polls, the number or the percentage of black voters is around like 70%. I mean, how can that be, right? But if that happens, that may be the difference in putting Donald Trump in the White House for a second term. I know it's hard to believe. I mean, here's the other thing. You know, you watch the Stormy Daniels testimony, you watch the trial, and you got to say to yourself, oh my God, after all this, we're still considering Donald Trump for a second go round, a second term. I mean, forget about 2016. Does knowing all this stuff make you feel that Donald Trump is good for our nation now? I mean, I think that ought to be talked about. Donald Trump. Meantime, Joe Biden is out there talking to Congress with a strong statement about anti-Semitism, strong statement reiterating his position about, the campus protests, and also support for Jews in this country who feel threatened, who feel afraid, who feel somehow, less than by the anti-Semitic surge in campuses. I mean, that was a side by side. Now you can see the news stations forced to shift, talking about Donald Trump's trial and Stormy Daniels' testimony, and then, Joe Biden's going to Congress. He's going to give a speech on anti-Semitism. Good speech. He was acting presidential, instilling confidence, fighting against racism, fighting against needless violence. And Donald Trump is in trial when a porn star has alleged that she had an encounter, a sexual encounter with him, that he did not use a condom. That was another detail. And that she felt strange after the encounter. It was consensual. It wasn't like rape, but it was strange because Donald Trump was married with a child with his wife, Melania, at the time. That the kind of guy you would have voted for in 2016 if you knew that information? And forget about 2016. Is that the kind of guy you want to be president in 2024? So, my feeling is, yeah, you got to be citizen juror. I mean, follow the trial, follow the commentary. The jurors are taking notes. They have a day off tomorrow, and they're not allowed to read or talk or, see any coverage of the trial. They're just thinking about Stormy Daniels for the day. They're back on Thursday. She'll be cross-examined. And then who knows? We might get Michael Cohen in a week or two. And if you think this was hot and heavy, it was, I would say when Stormy Daniels was testifying, she kept going too fast. Yeah, I know what going too fast is about. I don't know, maybe she was on, I don't know. But they had to ask her to slow down. And so she did. But I thought she was effective when she testified. I think she fell apart during cross-examination. Not enough to hurt her. But there was a motion for mistrial because some people think it was too much. It's not too much. Some people think it's too much. I think you need to hear from Stormy Daniels because Donald Trump denies it happened. This may be the second big lie. The first big lie is that he won the 2020 election and beat Joe Biden. That's the first big lie. The second big lie is, I don't know Stormy Daniels. I don't know what she's talking about. I never had a relationship with her. I think they have to cop to that now. They have to say, the defense has to say, yeah, we know Stormy Daniels, but it has nothing to do with anything. What does it have to do with falsifying documents? Well, everything. They falsified documents to cover up because they didn't want this information out, because they feared what the electorate would do, that they would reject Donald Trump. And that's the case. It's falsification of documents, but linked to the election, linked to the campaign. And I think the prosecution has done that with their steady lineup of witnesses, from Pecker to the accountants to Stormy Daniels to Hope Hicks. Hope Hicks was good. We didn't talk about last Friday. Hope Hicks cried. Hope Hicks's tears are the witness of truth. I mean, I talked to a friend, and my friend said, look, if you cry, you don't cry when you're lying, unless you're a good actor. I mean, if you're a good actor, you cry like on demand. But if you're real, tears are the witness of truth. I mean, I know this as a reporter, as a television and print reporter. I know that if I had someone crying, they were credible. Hope Hicks was credible. She knew what she was doing was going to hurt Donald Trump. She knew that. And she still has warm feelings for her. She still had to tell the truth, and she cried. So that's credibility right there. That's credibility. I just think she is credible. Hope Hicks. But, you know, nothing like, and that's why Stormy Daniels would have helped if she cried a little bit, but Stormy Daniels is beyond tears. Stormy Daniels is like, she is a tough cookie. And she was feisty based on the reports I was hearing, especially on Cross, when she was like raising her voice and when the defense was going after her saying, you hate Donald Trump, right? Or you want to see him, you want to see him behind bars. Yeah. If he's guilty. Yeah. She said, I want to see him accountable. That's what she said. So I think what we're left with is everyone has enough to like argue their small little smidgen of a point. You know, if you are pro Donald Trump, you can say, hey, he was just trying to protect Melania. You know, poor Melania. He didn't want Melania to know this. He was just a regular cheating husband trying to keep the truth from the family. Oh, poor Ivanka, poor Eric, and what's his name? Don Jr. Let's see, Don Jr. is the smart one, or is it Eric the smart? No, Don Jr. is the smart one. Eric's the dumb one. Okay. Barron. He was just trying to protect Barron. Didn't want Barron to know his father was a philanderer. Think about the family. Think about the first family. See, that's going to be, I think that's going to emerge as the only kind of defense that will give Trump any kind of credibility. No, I was thinking about my family. You never thought about your family. Just think about yourself. Meanwhile, the prosecutors are going to say, yeah, well, I think we did connect all the dots. Although some people who aren't as easily convinced will say, you got to prove that falsification of documents. You got to, double down, make it tighter. Loosen up all those, or tighten up all those loose ends. Maybe. But I'm listening to everything, and I'm thinking, I think they have enough. Especially, I think yesterday's or Monday's case, or Monday's court date, when they had the checks and they were showing the paper, the documents, and how they were falsified. That was pretty, like, oh my God, why would Weisselberg and the accountant, why would they put notes saying that this is what they're doing? It would seem like, they wanted to make notes for themselves. They weren't making notes for the prosecution, but that's essentially what they were doing. So I think it should be for the jury. To me, from what I see, I would think a conviction is at hand. I don't want to sound like I know, because I don't know. Can't predict the jury. And here's the thing. It only takes one juror to say, they didn't do this. They didn't tighten enough here. The salaciousness of Stormy Daniels, too distracting. What about the documents? What about the falsification of documents? She doesn't really corroborate any of the falsification of documents. No, she doesn't. Except that she got the checks. And number two, Trump didn't have to know about that. Okay. But she gives Trump motivation because Trump did not want their story out. I mean, that's motivation to want to falsify documents and to hide this information. But we got it today. We got the information out. The information that Donald Trump didn't want you to know is out there. So, and then he comes out at the end and he didn't know what to say. He just says, oh, it's witch hunt. I mean, just really, he didn't have anything to say. Said, I could be campaigning. I could be campaigning. But this is the campaign that people need to see. People need to see the real Donald Trump. And this is where we get to see the real Donald Trump in his direct attack on the rule of law, according to the judge. When you're in contempt of court, it's a direct attack on the rule of law. This is not a good example to be set if you want to be president again. It's not a good example if you're a former president, not a good example for a president who wants to be president again. But that's what we saw. That's what we're seeing. This is more valuable than Trump on the campaign trail. Because Trump on the campaign trail is lies, right? I mean, it's not truth. Here, you got Trump unveiling stuff about himself. He doesn't even realize he's doing it, but he is. And it's revealing. And the bottom line is, even at this juncture where we are, after all this, can you honestly say that Trump is a man who deserves a second shot at being president of the United States? I mean, is it really in the best interest of our country for a guy like this? I mean, you can say warts and all, considerable. Is this the best for America? Oh, yeah, what about that Joe Biden, Emil? Well, what did Joe Biden do today? He went before Congress and he spoke up against violence and anti-Semitism. That's important. That's important. Spoke the truth. And he's an adult. That makes a big difference. So that's the trial. I mean, it's amazing. I was trying to avoid it today, but I just couldn't. I heard, Stormy Daniels is going to be testifying. I mean, they're not putting this out ahead of time because they know that Trump would put something, say something, violate the gag order. And I know a lot of people are going to say, look, Trump is being persecuted. Trump is not being persecuted. Trump is not being persecuted. He's on trial. We're trying to get the truth. He's not being persecuted. But the jury, they're like taking notes like crazy, according to reports, which is great because they can go back and see transcripts. They can go back and see things, see their notes, their impressions. And they're going to be the final arbiters. And I'll tell you, I just can't see anyone after where we are want to hang this jury unless on a procedural thing they find that Stormy Daniels' testimony was a bridge too far. I mean, too much information. You kind of needed, I think, to show that indeed, despite Trump's denials, It really was. It really was an encounter. Stormy Daniels under oath let us know this was the information that Trump didn't want you to know. This was worth $130,000 to Stormy Daniels to shut her up. And now he's paying the price. So, other news, thank you for listening to the repeats yesterday. I still am thinking about my cousin, Stefan, my second cousin once removed. He called me uncle, and I still think about his death. I don't really know if there's not much to do after the 10th year. I mean, except to hope it never happens to anyone else. I know that there's no political will to change the law, and the law is if someone crosses the threshold of your door and enters, he or she is an intruder, and you have a right to kill that person. Under most murder laws in America, it's called the Castle Doctrine. That's the basis for those laws. And you might say accidents will happen, but accidents are accidents. And people would rather the law help the person inside the home who is in fear. I wish there was a way to change that. I mean, we didn't even get manslaughter. A manslaughter charge would have been at least something. But the way the law is worded, if you sense an intruder, even after the fact, even after you make a mistake, you can take out your gun, you can shoot a person, and be totally free of any kind of legal, incriminations, any kind of legal, there's no recourse for the victims, the family of the victim, but the people who are in the home who feel like an intruder's come in, you're the victim. And the law sides with you unfairly right now. Mistake, no mistakes. Mistakes, they forgive. But that does nothing for the family of the real victims, those closest to the person who's murdered. That's what happened 10 years ago. All right, we talked about Joe Biden giving that speech. He took advantage of the historic nature of the day. I think this is there's a special Jewish Remembrance Day. I think it was yesterday, but he gave the speech before Congress today. And he just continued to talk about, hey, no need for you have a right to free speech, but you don't have a right to break the law. It's a real law and order message. But here's my problem with that. My problem is that we know that, okay, you can see when the Columbia protesters broke into the building, they gave the university all the cover they needed to go in and send in the police. As soon as a law was broken, a real law, not like some university law, but a real law. Now, notice that if you look at the tallies for who has arrests and who doesn't, Columbia has like 200 plus. There's some schools that have 100. WashU, or I went to grad school there. They had like 100 plus. A lot of schools like 50, 60. Harvard, 0. And the other day, it's not that they don't have an encampment there, but people are being judicious in their use of power there. I don't know how for long. I mean, it may fall apart. MIT is having a problem, and there were protests yesterday. Harvard sent out a letter yesterday to students. And as an alum, I got the letter here, and it said this is from the president, over the last 12 days, the encampment in Harvard Yard has disrupted our educational activities and operations. The right to free speech, including protest and dissent, is vital to the work of the research university, but it is not unlimited. It is not unlimited. It must be exercised in a time, place, and manner that respects the right of our community members to do their work, pursue their education, and enjoy the opportunities that a residential campus has to offer. All right, so this is the very first paragraph from President Alan Garber, who's in my class. And how's that? President Garber. And I met him, oddly enough, that first week in October last year when things were falling apart because of the start of the Hamas war, when Hamas dropped the bombs on Israel. I was there for an alumni event, and he was there talking. He didn't know he was going to be president, but he's trying to do the best he can, and I just hope that people stay cool on both sides. Because right now, I mean, Garber's letter, he writes, he says, the individuals participating in the activities of the encampment have been informed repeatedly that violations of university and school policies will be subject to disciplinary consequences, and that further violations and continued escalation will result in increasingly severe sanctions. So he's getting serious. He's saying, "Hey, we're going to shut this sucker down. We're serious now." But he says, "I write today." This is a letter that was sent out to the campus yesterday and to alums. "I write today with the simple message: the continuation of the encampment presents a significant risk to the educational environment of the university. Those who participate in or perpetuate its continuation will be referred for involuntary leave from their schools. Among other implications, students placed on involuntary leave may not be able to sit for exams, may not continue to reside in Harvard housing, and must cease to be present on campus until reinstated." So this is the line. It says, look, we're telling you to get out. You're violating university laws. We're essentially suspending. Involuntary leave is essentially a suspension. So reports from the Boston Globe says a lot of people did not get any of the news. They got the letter, but it was not the kind of thing where they were hoping the university would keep talking with them. But it does not appear as if the university wants to keep talking. This seems like this is the university saying, that's it. You're suspended. You're going out. And I just hope I just want people to keep talking. I think we'll have peace if we keep talking. If you violate a university law, it's bad. There are going to be sanctions. They're going to suspend you. But if you break the law, they'll call in the police, and then there'll be another Columbia. And I think that's what I'd recommend against. You know, I know everyone talks about, oh, this is the same class that they missed the high school graduation. Their college experience was just changed. It was different because of not just the pandemic, but because of these protests. Okay, yeah. But in some ways, this is how the university acts in real life. It's not an ivory tower. It's part of life. And you got to adjust. And this may be more important. Whatever lesson is learned here may be more important than whatever these students learn in their classes. I mean, if they're history majors, they're English majors, certainly. Maybe not so if you're a science major. But in terms of living in the world that you inhabit and trying to deal with the people in your world and trying to get to a logical and reasonable place of agreement, this is a test. I hope they keep talking. I hope both sides keep talking. I hope that the protesters don't get out of hand and start doing something illegal, because as soon as they occupied a building in Columbia and broke some windows, that's when people got strange, right? That's where Columbia called in the cops. Harvard's ready to do the same thing, I think. They're just waiting for someone to make a faux pas. Or maybe they feel like they have more time because we're still in reading period. Graduation isn't until later in the month. Like, there's at least 2 weeks. But look what happened to Columbia. They thought they were saving the graduation, and now they've canceled the main graduation. Now they're going to have graduation somewhere else, off campus. They're still going to have disruptions. But I think that's sort of the problem, to think that you can avoid not talking about it. Now, there have been schools that have done. They've taken another way. They've kept talking. They were earnestly negotiating with the students, regardless of whether or not it was, mostly outside agitators. The protests, whatever happens to this protest, it's not going to go away just like this. People can graduate. There'll be new people coming in. It's never going to go away. I mean, you can hope. But I think the best thing is for the university, all universities, not just Harvard, but all universities, to keep that channel open. As long as there's talks, there won't be stupid things on either side. Because as soon as there is a stupid thing on the side of the protesters, like violence or the breaking of a law, that's it. Call the cops. The university doesn't want to call the cops. They'll sanction you within, the university's rules for breaking those rules. But if you keep nonviolent protests, you can keep those channels open and continue the discussion, which should be the goal. I know, easier said than done, right? But I think that's the lesson from Columbia. They shouldn't have gone into the building. They shouldn't have, vandalized, because those were laws that were, outside the university. Bring in the cops. If you can avoid bringing in the cops, keep the discussion in earnest, because it's not going to happen overnight, right? This may extend. And if it does, you can't make it go away unless you take some action. It takes both sides. At campuses where it has been successful, they've talked about maybe more transparency as far as what to do with divestment in Israel, what to do with the university's investments in, things connected with Israel and the Hamas war. That was an opening. some universities, the protesters at some universities took it. Northwestern, Rutgers. There's two more. There are at least four. So I think that's an answer. I think that's a reasonable answer. It doesn't end it, but it's reasonable. No one gets their head busted, and you say, "Oh, it's sad. These kids they don't have the graduation they deserve." Well, no, but there was something more important. More important than the paper chase? Well, yeah. They were talking about their university in the world and how to deal with it. They weren't some ivory tower. They were part of the world, and they were trying to make some kind of impact. It's real, and that's a learning experience. It's valuable. As long as it's peaceful. As long as it's peaceful. So what did I do last night? Oh, I watched the basketball games. Are interesting now. Now all the pretenders are gone. Unfortunately, the Warriors, my team, pretenders. The Lakers, pretenders. But the Minnesota Timberwolves, man, they're good. They play Warrior basketball better than the Warriors. And they just wiped out Denver. I've seen the Warriors play Denver that way and wipe out the Denver Nuggets. But now the Timberwolves look like they've got fast guys, they've got big guys, they've got ball movement, and it looks like maybe Denver's minutes mess. They beat Denver at home. At home they beat Denver. So the Timberwolves game is pretty amazing against Denver. And now the Knicks, look, I last rooted for the New York Knicks when Earl the Pearl Monroe played for them. So that dates me. They had Monroe and they had Frazier. They had Dick Barnett. I loved the Knicks. I go way back with the Knicks. I think that was the last time they were good, too. They're good now, thanks to all those Villanova guys. I think the Knicks are going to be the surprise team. Brunson, here's the thing I like about Brunson. He's not a three-point hog. I mean, he shoots a three. He gets a three, but, his move is just like Frazier, right? Frazier was at drive, fake, juke, step back, pop, mid-range from inside the key. I mean, that was like a Frazier move, right? Back up, Earl the Pearl Monroe. That was the Earl the Pearl Monroe move. You back up into the key, step back, pop, two. Or somehow manage, now that they have the Euro step, you get that Euro step in there. God, even Dante DiVincenzo was looking good last night. And he had a key three at a moment where, the Pacers were catching up, and he put them down. I mean, it was a close game. The Pacers are good. But the Pacers, I don't know. Halliburton's good. They got a good team. Siakam. But when the Knicks and the Villanova three, Josh Hart, DiVincenzo, Brunson, when they're hot, I think this Knicks team could be good. I mean, this Knicks team might be able to qualify for the next round, which is, would it be great, Knicks Celtics? I mean, that would be classic, Knicks Celtics. And then, the Thunder is good on the West. The Thunder is good. I like the Thunder. But I'm kind of rooting for the Timberwolves. If the Timberwolves can beat Denver, let them advance. Denver's tough. If you can beat Denver, let them go. All right, so I talked about my NBA. Now, my NHL pick, I don't know. Like, once my Maple Leafs go, and the only reason I root for the Maple Leafs is because they've got a Filipino guy, Nick Robertson. They don't play him much. His brother is the big star at Dallas, and I think they're still in the playoffs. They might have lost. My interest level in the NHL peaked when the California Golden Seals could not get Guy Lafleur. And that was in the 60s. Peaked. I mean, I have a lot of hockey friends from college. I mean, I used to go to the Bean Pot, BU, BC, Harvard, Northeastern, the Bean Pot. That was fun. So I've seen a lot of good hockey, but it's tough. I can make an excuse. I don't live in a hockey town, but look at where all the hockey towns are. Tampa, Miami, Phoenix. I mean, those are hockey towns now. I've got no excuse. I guess I just don't like hockey. Because if I can't skate, if I can't play, screw it. All right, the other thing that I'm really hot on, I don't know if anyone else is hot on this. American Idol. Man, I am big. I've always been a big American Idol guy. Oh, now I'm going to be swish out on that. I've always been big on American Idol because I think that they give so many tips for performers. I love that because look, I don't sing. I cop to that right away. But when I go on stage, a lot of the things that the crew, Luke and Lionel Richie and Katy Perry, what they tell the performers is relevant to just, for delivering a performance that is memorable and exciting. And so I have to admit that I watch for that reason. I watch to hear the notes that they give. And sometimes the notes are very good. And it really boils down to, you got to be in your zone. You got to be in your comfort zone. Still pushing. You got to include the audience, but your comfort level allows you to give that authentic performance. And so I'm rooting for they're now down to the top 5. There were the 2 that got kicked out. Could have easily won. The girl, the Guatemalan girl from Maine, she was an adoptee. There were 2 adoptees. She was adopted, and the other one, the other girl from Arizona, she was adopted. The girl from Arizona she was a classic kind of beauty puss, She looked like she could have gone all the way, but America votes. They didn't vote her in. The other girl from Guatemala had an unusual look, but she had the great voice, and she kept pushing, and she could have been it. I think I would have given her the chance because I think the other girl has a better chance. McKenna was her name. I think she has a better chance of success in the regular showbiz world than the girl from Maine, who is a little more unorthodox. But here's the thing. They go on tour with Idol, and even if you finish in the top 10, if you're good, you will have a career. I mean, Jennifer Hudson didn't win. She has a career. I have to admit, after all these years, I still like American Idol. I still like American Idol. Good show. Good show. All right, let's see. Swish out. All right, let me talk about the Fringe, the Orlando Fringe. I know, look, I'm not saying if you're in California, you got to go to Orlando. But maybe you're going to go to Orlando. I don't know. You might be in Orlando, say, May 16th through 26th or so. I mean, that's when I'm there. And if you want to get tickets, there on the screen, go to a.tix, T-I-X link, a.tixlink.co/amok, A-M-O-K, a.tixlink.co/AMOK, and get all the information you need about tickets to the Orlando Fringe. It's the biggest theater festival in the United States. I think they billed themselves as that at one point. I don't know. I think they're still the largest. It's fun. And I found out that they're renting cabañas. They have this big lawn, and they have cabañas that they rent out to people so they can drink and hang out in their cabañas, I guess. So it's like a big party. And there's this big lawn that is surrounded by 1, 2, 3, like 4 or 5 different places for theater. And you just walk around this space, and it's in downtown Orlando, and it's just fun. Theater festival. You go in, most of the shows are like an hour. Like my show's an hour. You go in and you can start your day at 12 o'clock, have lunch, go back and watch like 3 or 4 more shows, go back at night and watch three more shows. There are some people who watch like maybe 6 or 7 shows a day. And there's like 50 or so shows. So in the course of two weeks, they try to see them all, which sounds like sheer gluttony. It is, but it's inspired. It's for, the whole idea of the Fringe is these are shows that you wouldn't see elsewhere. These are shows that are special. And my show is Emil, Amok, Lost NPR host. Wiley Filipino, vegan trans dad. Oh, that's a mouthful, Emil. Lost NPR host, really? Are you lost? Oh, yeah, but I'm found. Oh, okay. Wiley Filipino? Who is Wiley Filipino, Emil? Well, it's Wiley, W-I-L-Y, connotes something negative. Oh, there's a Wiley Filipino. But Wiley Filipino is like a proper name. There's Wiley. Hi, Wiley. Oh, you got to see the show. And then vegan trans dad. What? Emil, is this like a Mrs. Doubtfire kind of thing? Well, anyway, check it out. If you're going to be in Orlando, if you're in the East Coast, if you're, the people on the Fringe circuit are from all over. They're from some locals from Florida, of course, some from the East Coast. Some that I met at the Fringe Festival in New York are going to go down there. Some I met at the Fringe Festival in Fresno in California. They're going to go down there. I have friends that I met in previous festivals from Europe, from Australia, from New Zealand, from Canada. They're going to be there. So it's kind of like an interesting collection of a theater subculture. But it's good. It's stuff you wouldn't ordinarily see. It's stuff on the Fringe, but that's not bad. It's stuff that deserves to be seen, but wouldn't in the mainstream. So check it out. Go to a.tixlink.co/amok, A-M-O-K, and get ticket information there. All right? Yeah. I failed to mention this. I got a vaccination. A friend of mine was talking, did you vax up again? I said, no, not yet. He said, well, if it was 4 months since your last one, they wear out. You got to get, the new booster. And there is a new booster because there are some variations that they took care of. If you got the first booster, say last November, now we're in May, 5 months since I had my last booster shot, they got a new vaccine. And I've not, knock on wood, not had COVID, fortunately, but I feel like the vaccination has helped. I feel like the vaccination has helped me become just able to, it's helped me to cope with the treachery of the virus out there. And so it's a little dismaying when only less than 20% of the people who could get it have gotten it. That means like 80% don't have it, which means, maybe it's a good idea to get it, right? If 80% of the people who could get it don't get it, you're asking for it, especially if you go into a theater situation. So I'm going to Orlando. They have a COVID policy. They're going to have, masks. You can mask if you want. I'll mask sometimes, but for the most part, if I'm vaccinated, I'm going to feel good. So I got vaxxed. So I went to the drugstore, went online. Oh my God. The pharmacist there just jabbed me, and it's all right. They're not really careful, but I got more pain than I ever have from a shot. I had to take Advil, but I'm all right, and I'm glad I did it. And I went to a different drugstore of this chain because if I go to the one close to my house, I know that I'm going to get the one who's she's a jabber. And I went to this other one, and they were not a good bedside manner. But here's what I say. I mean, if you do the research, you should get it. I think you should get it. I'm glad I got it. I'm going to go from the West Coast to the East Coast, and you just never know. You never know what's going to happen. 80% of the people aren't vaccinated, don't want to take the risk of something happening. So I'm getting vaxxed. Or I did get vaxxed. So now I guess I'm happy. I am. I'm happy that I got vaxxed. Get vaxxed. All right, that's going to do it for our show today. Hey, listen, thank you. We're here usually Monday through Friday, 2 p.m. live. If I'm not, that's why I wasn't feeling that well yesterday, because I went to get vaccinated and my arm was hurting. Oh, Emil, you don't talk with your arm, but sometimes I do. Sometimes I do. So I played the repeat. This one, though, I figured, well, got Stormy's testimony. And Stephanie Clifford. I don't know. I think she's credible. I think she's credible. And I think you see how the case has been laid out, and I think it's a strong case of the prosecution. As I said earlier, there's enough there for the prosecutor or for the defense to say, hey, he's just protecting Melania. He doesn't want to. Come on. He cares about Melania. He doesn't care about Melania. This isn't about protecting Melania. It's about protecting his chances to be president in 2016. He was afraid that if the information got out, it would hurt his chances. The payments to provide the hush money are linked to the campaign for president in 2016. That makes it illegal, a felony. And maybe in your mind, they haven't proven it, but if I were a juror, I would say I'm close to there. I am close to there. But let's see. We haven't even had Michael Cohen. And Michael Cohen would be an explosive witness. So let's see what happens there. So I had to come back today. Tomorrow, we'll see. Maybe we'll talk about some other things. I read about this pineapple. Did you see this? Would you buy a $400 pineapple? A $400 pineapple, yeah. I guess it wouldn't be non-GMO. I mean, it would have to be modified. They're not. We'll talk about that tomorrow, among other things. But then you could look for it. Oh, he's going to talk about the pineapple. He's going to talk about the pineapple. Yeah, I am. I'm going to talk about the pineapple. Hey, listen. So good to be with you. It is. And, we always end up with a little meditation. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. A little homage to Sharon Salzberg. Yeah, loving kindness meditation. It works. Put it out there. Send it out there. Comes back twofold. It works. It's love. Send out the love. Don't be afraid to send out the love. It comes back. It comes back. I was thinking about this about Gates, because I talk about Gates in my show. Bill Gates. I mean, Gates got it wrong. He made his life about making money, but he got the equation wrong because he's now realized he's got more money than time. And that's not where you want to be with your life. More money than time? That's not where you want to be. Anyway. Emil Guillermo here. Back again next time. YouTube at Emil Amok 1. Twitter at Emil Amok. Facebook at fb.com/EmilGuillermo.media. X at Emil Amok. Or at Amok. www.amok.com. Hey, thanks for joining me. Until next time. Mahal Kita.